Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, recite you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting the passion through various. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Consciousness is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, passing it. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers? What? All the answers.
Wait, that's too easy. If we just are starting, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that.
It's gonna be okay.
Yes. Hi, Katie.
Shifting gears.
Hey, have you been teaching? What's going on? Tell me about your day so far, if you want to.
What have I been doing? I feel like I've done 600 things. One thing is I went to downtown where I live and gave postcards for my upcoming stand-up show to like 30 stores.
Nice.
Which was a lot. And then did a little shopping because I was out. I was like, I deserve a sweater. Then I took the dog to the dog park. Then I had 2 clients back to back. Then I did a bunch of sending information to my assistant to build this reel because I had an agent express some interest, an Orlando agent. They have like some TV work because they're connected to the Atlanta scene. So putting a reel together, but I'm terrible at that. So Leslie's doing it. So I had to like this video, that video, send it to her, send a bunch of notes. And here we are. And then I'm getting ready. I have improv tonight, rehearsal, which is fun. Did 3 Mary Poppins, that's a lie, 2 Mary Poppins shows this weekend. We opened.
Nice.
Which is so fun. And it's been a long time. And I feel like the universe, I've probably said this on here before, but it's being kind to me because it's like eased me back into theater with a 2-scene role.
Yeah.
Where I get to come in and sing a very big, very difficult, very show-stopping song, 2 versions of the same song. So it's like I get to really get my rocks off and get a lot of praise afterwards for it because it's like the song is just, if you can sing that song, you're getting all the clappings.
Right.
And then I'm knitting a sweater, man. The rest of the show is just chill-tastic time for me. I'm like getting work done and sitting backstage chilling and not having to like carry the thing. And it feels kind of great.
Nice. Yeah. Those are fun. As long as it's not so tiny that you're just like, why am I here? But like you get meat and then lots of chill.
Yeah, no, if it were so tiny, I'd be resentful. But this is meaty enough, like it's definitely meaty enough. And it's fun. It's really fun. So yeah.
Cool. That's great.
That's what's been going on. And we had a big night the other night, a few of us. So we went out with my sister and her friends and did like the beaches, nightlife, food at a place. Oh, and there's like big news in Jacksonville, which is that. So like, it's kind of an entertaining story, actually. And I'm sure we'll get some traction out of this on some level. But the football team here, the Jaguars, they're like, did you watch The Good Place?
Of course. Yeah, we've talked about this, how he was just super into the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, also, he was just like the lamest loser ever. And it's very Jacksonville vibes, like whoever wrote on that show lived here for a while because there's the detail of how they characterize Jacksonville so accurately is really fun. Anyway, the Jaguars that lose all the time, that's what they do.
Yeah.
They have the most loyal fans ever. It makes no sense. They're weirdly winning everything. And they just won a game the night that I was out. I happened to be at a sports bar where I never am at one of. And they were behind by 6 points and they came up and won the game by 1 point.
Uh-huh. And did the place just explode and tear itself down?
It was like, so what had happened was everybody thought the game was over. So people left the stadium. People gave up. Nobody was at this sports bar. They were like, well, it's another loss. But it's a playoff game. They had made it to the playoffs weirdly. And all of a sudden, this empty restaurant becomes flooded with human beings outside the windows, pressing their bodies up against the windows like, Duval, yelling like the thing people yell about this team. And then flooding in. It was like we went from empty restaurant to packed. And it was closing. So they were like, I guess come in. It's like people appeared from nowhere. It's very weird. It's very weird.
Wow.
Anyway, we left right then because it was about to get crazy. But it's fun to be like in a place where the collective is so goddamn amped about a thing.
Yeah.
That you kind of can't help but get swept up in being amped by the thing.
Absolutely.
I find myself being like, did they win? Let's watch. Oh my God. Yeah. And you're like, I guess I care now.
Yeah, the group energy is, I was trying to explain to somebody who was like, I made a reference to I think it was football. I was like, well, I don't even remember what reference I made. I made a vague reference that made it sound like I maybe know or am a fan. And then they were like, oh, they inquired deeper. And I was like, oh, I'm totally not a sports person. I'm not a sports person.
Yeah.
But I'm not a sports person.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, and they kind of got disdainful. And I was trying to explain, I will love a football game and I will be the fan of who it's fun to be a fan of for that game with that group of people.
Same.
And I will be all the way on board to wanting the Niners to win. But when I'm not with that group of people or watching that game, I could give a shit about what the Niners are doing. I feel like it's really hard for people to grasp that. Like, I'm still fully invested in that moment. They're like, no, you're not. I'm like, but I am, because the whole experience is just it's a tribal experience. It's one of being part of the group that wants the thing to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing it temporarily and they're doing it full time. That's all.
You could argue that it is about time, but it's also about what you're celebrating. Like, for myself, I'll speak for myself and say, I'm celebrating the joy everyone around me has about this thing.
Yeah.
They're celebrating the thing.
Right.
I'm like enjoying that we're all happy, and I'm happy they won because it makes everybody happy. And now we're all having fun together. But I'm not like at home, like wondering if the quarterback is going to jerk off later or not. Like, I don't.
Do you think they're wondering about that, Katie?
Yeah. Yeah. They jerk off on stage.
Is that the idea you have in your mind about how people perceive sports? Is that they're constantly wondering if the quarterback is jerking off?
That's what they're wondering.
Cool. I just wanted to know what your version of that story was. Great. Good.
So I think we enjoy the enjoyment of it. And also, like, sure, I like watching a play happen. I just don't care if it's the same team. Like, whatever team you put in front of me, if somebody made a cool play, I'd be impressed by the play.
Exactly.
I'm not married to the tribalism of the team.
Right.
But some people are. Most people are.
I mean, I'm kind of into the Warriors basketball because they're just such a sweet team. They're good people. That's a good.
How do we know?
I mean, we don't, except we hear. For the most part, they're both they're good people, but they so clearly play as a team, and it's so fun to watch a team play. Yeah, even with star players. Right. Like, it's a beautiful, like, camaraderie energy while watching them pass, and the other teams do it too. But I just feel like the Warriors do it a little better. Plus, I live in Oakland, and
I remember feeling that way about the Warriors. Like, when I lived in Oakland, I got to know them a little bit and was like, what's his bucket? The young guy, the small guy?
Steph Curry.
Yeah. He's like a wizard. Yeah. He's like amazing.
He's definitely a wizard.
And then the tall guy.
The tall guy. Oh, on the basketball team? That tall guy.
That was the joke. Who am I thinking of? Scottie Pippen. Wasn't he on the Warriors? Or he's LA?
I don't think he's a Warrior. I don't think so. We should probably not pursue this line.
But I like it. That's why we should pursue it. We're just going to
stumble around like blindfolded in the dark.
That's why to pursue it. Let's be the funny ones about it. Yeah. We're not real.
Nothing is.
Wait, but Scottie Pippen was a big deal for some people I knew in Oakland.
Are you looking him up?
No.
I could be wrong.
Let's look it up.
Scottie Pippen. Let's see. Who did he play? People listening to this who know are just like clawing their eyes out right now. He played for the Lakers. Okay. That's the Los Angeles team.
So it's a California team. That makes sense, right?
Yep. And he's the son of another famous player, also named Scottie Pippen.
His dad's name is Scottie Pippen?
Yeah.
What? He's Scottie Pippen Jr.?
Yeah.
The Scottie Pippen that we know of is the junior or is the dad?
Probably the one you're thinking of is, the more recent one is the junior.
No, but the one who...
And he played with the Lakers. And the famous one, maybe the more well-known one, is the one with the Bulls. He played alongside Michael Jordan. So that's probably...
That's the one I know of.
And he went from the Bulls to the Rockets to the Blazers, back to the Bulls.
Yeah, I actually know that.
And then did two overseas teams.
So wait, you're saying his son is also named Scottie Pippen and also plays basketball?
Yeah.
That I did not know.
Yeah, I don't know if he's like an all-star or not. He might just be a, solid player. Couldn't say.
And how are you?
I'm good. Tell you what I've been doing is a slow but persistent process of cleaning and clearing, not my emotional body, my literal physical life. I've been like, I take a random box of storage shit and just take it out and go through that box and throw away half of it and reorganize the other half and then put it back.
That's cool.
That's basically what I did all weekend. Besides, like, I went out to a show, went and saw our friend Scott's comedy show, saw Mortified.
Oh, Mortified. Yay.
It was really fun and it was great. And I had a great time. And then we found a bar that wasn't crowded with people, and that was fun, which is shocking.
What if we tell the audience who, maybe the parts of our audience who don't know what Mortified is?
Mortified is a wonderful healing experience for people. It is where people read stuff that they wrote before the age of 19. Basically, that's the simplest pitch. But it's usually like journals or poetry or, teen angst stuff. Live journal. More recently, people have started reading old live journals, which was an online thing, or AOL chats or letters that they exchanged with their grandmother. Whatever it is that they're going to write that sort of illustrates the awkwardness of what their life was when they were teenagers.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like you just hear somebody reading their junior high school journal, and it's really funny.
It's hilarious. I laughed so hard. One of our friends wrote a lot of metal songs back in the day, and then he read us his lyrics, and the whole thing is he just kept apologizing, like, and also for this one, I am sorry, because it was like metal and it was super misogynist and super, like, also from a point of view of someone who doesn't actually know what they're talking about, because he was an awkward, 14-year-old singing about banging babes and stuff.
Right.
No idea what he's saying.
That's great.
But that one turned into, I found out afterwards. So then he performed a couple of them, one on a guitar and then one with a full guitar backing track, like full rock arena style.
That's cool.
What happened was he did this reading at a Mortified 10 years ago, and out of that met some people and created a band that now tours or at least performs pretty regularly, but they only will perform songs that he wrote before the age of 18.
That's fun.
So their whole thing is doing his bad metal.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. Live Evil is the band. You guys should look it up. Sounds fun.
That's a really good name too.
Yeah. It's a palindrome also, which I love.
Yeah, me too.
So I did that and been cleaning. It's been raining a lot here. And
yeah, what's up with that? How's California holding up with all that?
I mean, it's been bad for some people, like really bad. Some houses have been totally flooded and besieged, and several people have died. And I mean, it's bad. Like several, like 15 or 20 or some crazy.
Oh my God.
Some large number of people, swept away in floods and stuff, flash floods. Our house is fine. It's designed to flood. So usually we're worse off because it's an old house. And if it rains at all, our basement floods, but it's supposed to flood and it has a sump pump. So because everybody's houses are flooding, the houses that don't flood normally can't deal with it. Mine's like, my house is like, oh yeah, this is how it is. Yeah. So it's fine. Yeah. I have nothing deep or exciting or particularly vibrant to report anew. I
have another thing I could talk about that I guess I'll talk about.
Yeah. Our guests should be on in about 5 minutes, probably. I'll just keep an eye out for them.
So I was sharing this with a friend today in a voice memo. This speaks to the value of astrocartography. Again, for people listening, like, please, if you just have any questions about where you're living or where you're meant to be in life, I really can't recommend astrocartography enough. Like, it's the study of like where your body does best in time space, like what gets created in your reality if you live in X place versus Y place. Let me pull up this woman's name one more time. I've sent her so much business. I'm just going to, because for people listening, if you need a reading, Elizabeth Smith Astro at gmail.com. Man alive, am I experiencing precisely what she said would happen here.
Wow.
In this place. But specifically, what's tripping me out the most is this morning I was walking down to pass out postcards and I just had this realization of, I felt exactly this way before. And I was like, oh my God, it was the last time I lived in Florida. In other words, I've started to, I think I probably said this on here a while ago, that when I was in New York specifically, I got this idea that would be, I'm calling it in my head a ShowVent. So it's a show/healing event. And it would be me talking and telling stories and teaching things and doing jokes. And then there's a healing at the end and then I take questions from the audience. So it's this whole big ShowVent. And I started to create it in New York, and I did one performance of one version of it, and then hated being in New York so much I had to focus on moving, and then came here. And in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been going through a real, I have this thing where I need to know where my focus is for the short term. Like, what am I building right now? Because if I'm not clear on what's the big picture of what I want, then I can't hone in on what's the small steps that need to be taken today. So I've been very what is the big picture of what I want? Am I creating a theater company? Am I going to just tour as an actor again? And in the last 48 hours, it's all spun into some kind of clarity again, which has been very nice. But the sort of astrocartographical, part of this is that I was walking today and I was like, oh, of course it's the ShowVent. If I do the show event and tour it the way I'd like to, and it works the way I want it to, everything else grows from that. And that is exactly how I thought when I was in a treatment center in in southern Florida. The last time I lived in Florida, I had gone to New York. I went back from New York to Florida. I wrote my solo show in treatment that then was the thing that I earned my living doing for 8 years.
Yeah.
I just toured Insides Out forever. I couldn't stop that show touring. I was in Florida having this inspiration to write a thing that would include all my parts and would be my source of income. And now I'm in Florida again going, oh, I'm going to put all my parts together into one thing that will become my new business. And I'm like, my mind is blown because there's something about this place for me that gets me very clear about what I want to create creatively, what I want my life to look and feel like. And then it's this is the place to create it. And this is the place from which to tour it. And I'm just so tripped out by how the clarity descended in almost the same exact flavor as it did when I wrote that first show. And it makes me wonder, what if I had stayed here and then toured back then and never left? How much clarity would I have had the whole time? And of course, I get a no on that. It's you had to leave to realize you want to be here.
And you had a lot of work to do. I mean, you just said that you wrote it in treatment. You were still doing a lot. There was a lot happening that still was not done yet.
Yeah. It's just, isn't that incredible? I think I'm just, no matter how much I know that astrocartography helps and that where you are really, really matters, it still continues to blow my mind, the degree to which that's true. This kind of revelation was not descending upon me in any other place I've been. It all clicked in here now. And it's the same kind of click that happened before. It's so fucking weird.
That's great. Nico is here, and I'm wondering, let's not bring up astrocartography unless it comes up.
Yeah.
I'm seeing if our powers to manifest hold true, as always. I did want to say one thing about that. I love the idea that you've actually said, because a lot of time we think about locations being oh, this is a place to be spiritual, or to Sedona or whatever, those are vortexes and places to go to for everybody. That's where everybody goes to drink the water. Whereas you're saying nope, because you wouldn't think of Jacksonville as being a place for personal advancement, but it is for you.
That's the point of astrocartography and human design, is everything is for the individual. There is no broad sweeping anything.
I love that.
Yeah.
Honing in on that. All right. I'm going to bring them in. I believe, yes, they, them. I just saw it on their profile. So that's great. Awesome.
What's up, everybody? Rami here. There's a specific feeling that I've experienced many times and that I really love. And what language has a word for this feeling? Not English. It is solo travel when you're leaving a place after you've had a journey there or completed a chapter of your life. And you're closing the chapter, or you're leaving something behind. and there you are alone. It's definitely a solitary feeling. It's sweetness and it's tender, maybe sad, very reflective, and quiet. And I've definitely had this feeling on planes the most, but also trains sometimes. And I guess driving too, although, yeah, I'm going to say yeah. Anyway, so I just had that recently. And yeah. Rami's rules.
Nico, are you with us?
Yeah.
Hey, beautiful. How are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me with these things?
Yeah.
We can.
Yay.
So nice to meet you. I can't even deal with it.
Yeah, nice to meet you. I feel like I've met you, but I haven't met you.
The amount I've heard about your amazingness and the amount I've seen you on the internet. Once Rami started to talk about you, I found you online and was like, I'll stalk this person. And then I am obsessed with your creativity and the way you express yourself and the specific idiosyncratic nature of what you create. I fucking love it.
Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you.
Oh my God, your posts are just so you. We were just talking about the notion of what it is to be the individual, and all these systems I teach are designed to empower people to be who they really are, And you are someone who I think, my perception of you through Facebook, what the fuck is reality, right? But so far you're a person who I see you as incapable of being anything but you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Other people are trying so hard to be who they are. And you're I wish I could be something else, but this is what it is. Yeah. I'm going to be this.
Wow.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's so on the money, and so much about what I wanted to talk about a little bit too.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, thank you. That's just so sweet and flattering. Also, my dog is always decides to want attention in these moments. So just mind that.
Well, if you've listened to the podcast, you know that we have our companion.
Oh, you're the baby.
Yeah. And she always comes in and naps during the thing on Katie aggressively or around Katie. And then as soon as it's done, the second she perceives that the records are closing and we're wrapping up, she's like, I'm up, I'm out, I gotta pee, gotta go do the things.
They're in charge. What are you going to do?
Do you want to put yours on your lap so you don't have to be pulled away, or is that not possible?
Oh, mine's a Rottweiler. She'll kill me. But let me just get her on the couch one second. Come here. Up. Can you come up? Yeah. There you go. Perfect. Thank you for your patience.
What's your dog's name?
Margarita.
Margarita. Qué bueno. ¿Qué tal, Margarita? Hola. Hola. ¿Qué pasa?
She's actually Italian.
Oh, va bene, tutto bello. Ci vediamo domani. Pasta, Margarita.
That was we call her Margarita square cut pizza. Yeah, all the Italian foods apply.
That's awesome. So, Nico, for the listening audience, you are friend of Rami, creative artist living in New York. How would you frame, this is usually what I start people with on this podcast, how would you frame your what is your relationship to spirituality? What does that word mean to you, if anything at all?
Yeah, I was thinking about that a lot before coming on. I've been thinking about it a lot because I'm also about to turn 40. And I've been thinking about a lot about my spiritual journey in my 30s. And I would say that a lot of that was galvanized at the beginning of my 30s, my current spiritual life, in that I went through this whole panic attack era in my early 30s, in my Saturn returns era. And it was also the same time I came out and found my queerness and my attached to my non-binary identity, which was my tethering place. But that's also where I began a lot of my meditation and spiritual practice that helped me navigate that storm. And I used to be a Catholic. I went to private Catholic school for 13 years, and I'm Italian American. So it's I had a lot of that dogma to release, but I've also always been very open to something that, like you said, my tendency to be myself most of all, and also rather be with myself than anything I don't want to be a part of has always made me want to find and grow my spirituality, because it's never found an ability to attach to any of these things that have been kind of put on me and create kind of my own. So yeah, I would say, like, I do a lot of things that are my spirituality and my healing practice are very interrelated. And it's very also related to my art practice too. And sort of, I think my spirituality, it makes me think of, like, it's sort of what connects everything that I am and do a little bit, I think. I just don't talk about it a lot because I think I express it through the work I make and just through who I am. And that's what I'm trying to kind of build more.
Are there words you could put that describe what, when you say the spirituality connects everything? Like, here's what I get when you say that. These are the words I would put on it, but I want to know what words you would put on it. It's almost like there's an essence to you and your soul and the bigness of you that you can feel that's kind of ephemeral and subtle. And then your job in this world is to be like, here, I'll express that essence in creative expression, or I'll express that essence in da-da-da. But I don't have like a practice or a name for that essence. It's just a thing I can sense. Is that right?
Yeah. I was just laughing at like things I've thought of myself before as, like, I used to call myself a reluctant witch, and that, like, my art practice is sort of like my witchery a little bit, or at least it's the thing that's had the most form that I've been able to apply and practice. But I've also been trying to expand that into the other things I do. But also because I felt like I've always been very connected to the spiritual realm, but because of also being a child of trauma and having recovered from it, that panic era was sort of like having both. Like, it was like when mutants in comic books have their power comes out, but they don't know how to wield it. And I was looking around at all of the energies and I was just so in fear of the things that I was like, oh, I have this power, but it also welcomes in all these other things. And so, like, the last decade has been about, like, getting to more in line with that and remembering that that's all a part of my spiritual journey.
Right. That's really cool. Are you an Aquarius by any chance?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. I wonder if I've asked Rami that before. It seems like an obvious guess, but
yeah,
to me anyway, but you seem very Aquarian to me.
We've answered a couple of questions from Nico and in fact, even had Nico kind of on the cast because we recorded your answers.
Oh, yeah.
I interviewed you on the phone. I think what we did is I interviewed you on the phone while we were recording the podcast, but we weren't linked directly to you. So I was asking you questions and relaying your answers to Katie. Now, if the listeners listened to this, they would have heard our masterful editor who actually got the recording of you off my phone.
Whoa.
And then edited my relaying it out. So it really sounded like Katie was interviewing you directly.
It did.
What? I didn't even know we did that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And it was just because we wanted clarity on your question. You'd give us
it was like the first, weren't you the first person to ask a question on here or something?
No,
it was June of the first few months of the pandemic.
Okay.
So it was a weird time, and like it was I don't know where you were at in that process in like terms of the podcast, but I do remember.
I don't know if we were having people on yet at that point. We had a few people submit questions, and and so you were the first kind of transition into direct interview.
Yeah. I feel like I remember there was some first about you.
I think that might have been it. First voice that we heard on the podcast.
Well, I remember it very well because of what I asked was something I really thought about, and I'm in such a different place from because so much has happened, obviously, since that moment in time. It also was like right before I really understood what you do and what Akashic Records are. And then suddenly after that, so much of that came into my awareness. So like, I was like, oh, and then so I've been always wanting to talk to you again because I felt like I didn't know what I was even at when I was at Cassidy had some questions. And I was like, I guess. So now I feel like I'm ready for part 2.
Oh, very cool. I love this. I love any full circle moment,
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, we can hop right into the Akashic Records if you want, but I feel like
whatever you want to do.
I would love to. I have a couple questions myself, just because we started to talk about like your connection to your creative process as sort of your spiritual expression. Katie said that, and Katie, you have so much admiration for their work. But could you share, just because people might not know who you are. What is your sort of, I know you have a persona that you operate in a lot of your performance stuff, if that's still happening, or like, what is your
outlet, expression?
What is your outlet? What does it look like?
I would say mostly now and recently, I'm a filmmaker and a screenwriter, and I make things for the screen primarily. And I'm also a playwright, and I've been an actor. The persona you're talking about is Pierre Valentino, which kind of was a thing I created to encompass all of those things. I made a little web series that kind of was incorporative of all the things I make a little bit, with Pierre as the outlet. I would say that Pierre is kind of hanging up a little bit now, and now it's me kind of taking that and doing it in for other things. But yeah, I've been in the performing arts for about 20 years or so, various capacities. But now I like to make things for the screen.
And as a screenwriter or playwright, is your work primarily sort of more fantastical and offbeat, or is it more? Is there also a linear narrative quality to it? I mean, what is the flavor?
I like to make genre stories in a way, but I like hybrid genre. And I really I feel like I speak in the language of trauma. So there's always sort of, I feel like I reinvent time a little bit when I make a new story a little bit. It has the structure that the story needs, and it speaks in that's very much that intuitive language that I like to connect to, that has to do with that spiritual thing you're asking about. Yeah, but I would say things that kind of both deal deeply with the surreal and the real at the same time. Because I always feel like so much of my imagination and the realities that my young brain processed were as real to me as the physical realities. And sometimes I feel like I want to see worlds where you see them on the same plane.
Oh my God, have you seen Bardo?
I haven't, but the idea of Bardo in the the concept of that is so much like, yeah, I totally know what you mean. I haven't seen it.
Oh, you're going to love it. Prepare.
Or are they going to hate it like you wanted to hate Everything Everywhere All at Once, because it was doing what you do?
I didn't want to hate it. I just was mad that the title was gone. Didn't want to hate it at all. I just kept not seeing it and being like, I don't know. But yeah, no, but I think you would love Bardo. I've only seen about 40 minutes of it. I've heard him interviewed too about like what he's trying to do there. And it's literally what you just said. It's the world of memory or imagination or dream superimposed within the three-dimensional, quote, quote, normal world. And they are given equal time, and you don't know when you're in which.
Yeah.
And he doesn't help you out. And it's fun as hell and very interesting.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love structure that then I can destroy a little bit. Because I think we especially with trying to create something new, I also am learning to allure people with the structure they find, and then start to find ways to,
break it,
but still use it in a way that lets them find themselves in a similar realm, and then not know quite how they got there.
Yeah, you got to watch Bardo. You got to watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that you have your own vision, and it's not but still, I think you'll get a lot out of it.
I'm such a geek. I love absorbing as much as possible. So please recommend.
And did you get into Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Yeah, I mean, I also love action, and I was a fight choreographer for a long time, so many things about it, and Michelle Yeoh, and it very much. Oh, the other thing that was also very important about that movie for me that hit on a number of levels was the multilingualness of it. That first scene where they go from speaking the different languages of the household kind of fluidly, even in between sentences. I got emotional hearing that.
Wow.
Because that's also something that's sort of also a liminal space that I'm fascinated by, of multi-generational space. So yeah, I really loved it. I mean, and I'm a fan of their work, but that one was definitely my loved.
Very cool. What else, Cass? What else did you want to ask?
Oh, I think that was mostly it. I did want to appreciate what you said about that sort of operating within the form before breaking it. I think that's an important aspect of what doesn't work sometimes for more sort of experimental stuff, because I'm breaking the form, but if you don't actually know the form that you're breaking, if you haven't respected the thing that you're breaking before you break it, is really, I think, is important. And I really love, it happens in improv all the time. People are like, I don't know, I just like chaos. And it's but you got to set up the thing that you're going to break before you break it.
Yeah.
You can't just break it.
Yeah. You
can't just throw the pot on the floor for the first shot of the movie. You're like, well, what are we what am I breaking? Yeah, I appreciate that.
And I feel like that lines up a lot with both not only my artistic journey and growth, but my spiritual and healing journey and growth. Because in the last few years, I've been really honing the structures and the things, because before it was a lot of the chaos stuff and trying. But I was like, oh, but if you really want to learn that thing you just said. And it was similar with my healing process, where I was always really bold, but I was always young and kind of alone in what I was confronting, because I'm an only child. I was raised by my grandparents too. So I was also like the youngest child in a certain way. So there was a lot of stuff that was just me winging it in that chaos mode. But then I was like, oh, if you add this structure to it, and you can kind of add the discipline or a spiritual practice. And that's what I've been thinking about a lot with my 40s coming up. Is like, I enter that chaos mode in the beginning of my 30s, where it just threw me into the space without asking. Like, it shot me into space without my suit on. And now I'm like, okay, I'm ready for space, but I'm now ready to go with intention. And I know that there's still this challenging journey, but I'm much more and I have some questions about that's been my biggest thing of and also how to be guided better through that next step.
Okay, I'm going to need to do a thing. Before we get into your records, I need to open your human design chart. I want to have it there to refer to, because we're going to get some key info there. I'm already getting downloads as you're talking. So can I take from you, if you're open to it, and we can bleep this out later if you don't want this on the internet, but can I take your birth? Do you know your birth time?
Yes.
Okay, can I have your birthday, month, and year first? Okay, and the time, city, state, woo, woo.
Woo, woo.
Woo! Woo!
This is cool. I'm excited. A fellow. Okay. I'm gonna share this with both of you.
Should be able to now.
So here's what I'd like to do. This is cool. Oh God. Okay. I mean, I have so many things to tell you already to illuminate things for you, but we can start with your questions. Okay, there's one thing I have to tell you, that whatever questions you ask me, you have to know this thing no matter what, which is that you're a 1-3, which is so, okay, I'm just going to talk about one thing about this. God, I could talk forever. I have a million things to say now. But I'm going to say one thing, and then, oh God. Okay. And then, and I'm sorry, listener, I'm looking at Nico's chart. So I got all the info now. And then we'll open your records, and then I'll take your questions, and then I'll be able to respond to the questions from the records, but also referring to this.
Totally.
If that makes sense. Okay. So the thing that I feel really compelled to share with you is that you're a 1-3. So for folks listening, and for all of us here, the profile of one's human design, this is right here. You see where it says profile on the right side here, and it shows you the 1 and 3. The profile speaks to your role in life. Like, what are you doing here? While you're here, what is the role you're playing? So the 1-3 is, I feel like people with a 1 in their line, and if you either had a 1 or a 3 in your profile, I would want you to really know about it, because of how important it is to understand what's happening to you. But you have both. Okay. It's like they are two numbers that are really important to know that you're operating with in the following sense. The first line, okay, the first thing to understand about a profile is the number on the left is your personality or your conscious number, conscious personality number. The number on the right is your unconscious body. So you have a first line personality and a third line body. Okay, so the first line is interested in, it's always building a foundation. It's trying to understand reality. It's trying to understand itself. It's trying to build a foundation of understanding of what reality is through trial and error. It's going to try this thing, and it's trying to take in all the information it can at all times, so that it can go, I see reality is this based on this information I've pulled in. I'll explain a little bit more about the first line by talking about the second line. So this is not you. Whereas a second line comes into the incarnation with some natural abilities for things. And it's not meant to take everything in all at once. It's going to take what it wants to take in as it wants to take it in, because it's called the natural, the hermit natural. The first line, you could say there's nothing natural to a first line. A first line is like, I don't know any of the shit that's going on here. I don't know how you do any of this. I'm like, what is anything? So I'm going to learn everything and pull it into my system so that I can build some kind of fucking foundation for whatever reality it might be for me. Okay. I'll come back to that. But so you've got that as your conscious personality. Then your body is a third line. And the third line is all about what doesn't work. The third line is bumping into things accidentally in life that become relevant to it. It's out at the laundromat. It bumps into someone who opens its eyes to a whole new thing. This is your body. Your unconscious body is going to be this way. But additionally, what the third line is doing is a whole lot of failing, you could say, errors, mistakes, mishaps, things that look like injuries, mistakes, errors, failings. But through the lens of human design, we wouldn't call them failures. We would say the third line is learning what not to do, what doesn't work. As a third line evolves through their life, you become a bit of an expert for other people about, no, you don't have to do that because that doesn't work. And here's why. Yes, you should do that because the opposite of it doesn't work. And here's why. I did it already. So a first line is building a foundation its whole life, being like, what is reality? How does it work? What do I do? How do I work? And then the third line body you have is mishaps and errors and mistakes and failures to figure out what doesn't work. So this is the life. This is like the role. This profile is the role of someone who is figuring stuff out for a while. And that is correct for this profile. That is what this profile is meant to be up to. Now, the flavor of expression that your 1-3 life is going to take is this thing here, the incarnation cross. By the way, I never start with profile and incarnation cross. This is just, I'm so strongly pulled to it for you in particular.
I'm also a 1-3. I just wanted to, I don't know what that
You
is
are?
relevant to, but I'm also a 1-3. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. So your incarnation cross, Nico, is this. So let me say, okay, this is a good example to talk about incarnation cross and its relationship to profile. So I always say this like this. Imagine I'm casting 2 productions of Romeo and Juliet in the same city. Okay. The role is the profile. So Juliet is the role, but I cast Cassidy as Juliet on the east side of town, and I cast you as Juliet on the west side of town. Same role, 2 very different flavors of expression. The incarnation cross details what that flavor of expression will be. Another way to frame what the incarnation cross is it's what your day-to-day life is filled with if you're functioning correctly as yourself. So if we were to look at Cassidy's incarnation cross, chances are good he does not have the right angle cross of contagion. He's got a different incarnation cross.
No, mine is of Eden.
Oh, we should talk about that because that's, I didn't know you had Eden. We should talk about that. Okay, anyway. So Nico, your day-to-day life looks like this when functioning correctly as you. Your cross carries the energy of desire and to experience what you desire. You are the one who tries new things out. It is your impulse. The rest of us benefit by the results of your experience, for good or bad. You also carry the energy that wants to say yes. You may need to manage this tendency or you will be overwhelmed by all your commitments. Any of that resonate?
Yeah. Yes, totally.
So how about this 1-3 stuff? Does any of that land for you?
Yeah, very much so, especially in terms of looking at the last couple of decades of my life. And then just some of the questions I was having was like being the kid that was surrounded by tumult and constant change, but always wanting to lay foundation. And that even though it was like not allowed, it was the only way to be like that unique self of mine that you were mentioning comes out of also necessity. It was a survival thing, but and also, but then because of and this has to do a lot with what I'm asking, without always having reliable guidance and mentors, finding them and other ways to get forward, to heal also came with a lot of failing, because it was like you were saying, trying and failing to find the way forward and learning from that to find what didn't work, because I had really not any good example for the unique self I was creating. And a lot of it that I have found, and so what some of my questions have to do with, like, as I was confronting a lot of the trauma part of the ancestry stuff, like I was thinking about it recently as like rubble. Then once you can kind of deal with the rubble, but then where do I build from that rubble? Like that is salvage. Like, to not fully erase all of it. That's, because you do that in the healing mode, right? And I feel like a lot of the failures were, or the learning lessons were like, I understood my boundaries too from them, the boundaries of who I am from failing like that. And I've always felt like the more I have, the more I've been able to be a bit of a like shaman for others, or like I can kind of do what you were saying, like I have just certain amounts of experience, and also from like a lot of loss and things that I've just been, in order to keep moving forward, it's finding like laying a new structure to process it and to work on having those attempts be less failure, but actually more about me reaching for like further reaches from that foundation I'm creating, that's been sort of yeah.
Okay. I have to tell you another thing about your design based on what you're saying there that I think will be simplifying and clarifying. And I have a feeling will be sort of a response to some of the questions you want to ask.
Mm-hmm.
You have what's called sacral authority. So your strategy is to respond to life, and your authority is sacral. Sacral authority means you're going to have gut awareness in your gut of what you have energy for and what you don't have energy for. So all you ever have to do is ask yourself this question: do I have the energy in my body to see that through or not? And if you don't know, just wait until your body knows. What is fully irrelevant to you is any thoughts or emotions you have about anything ever. And I'll show you where that is in your design, but I'm telling you with this chart, your thoughts and feelings are not the way to make decisions. Not for you.
Yeah, no.
Your way to make decisions is I have a gut level knowing that my body has energy for this or not. And it's actually a very simple design, but where you would get caught up is you have so many open centers. You have 5 open centers out of 9. I'll show you what that means. These here are called centers. You'll see how some of them are white and some of them are colored in. Yes?
Yes, totally.
The colored in centers are defined centers. That's the Nico-ness of Nico. The open centers are where you are inconsistent and unreliable and very open. So these are centers where you're going to be easily conditioned by the outside world, but you're also going to be very open. So it's important that we understand the specific operational sort of the operating system of each of these open centers, so we don't get caught in what's called the not self themes of our open centers. When you're following the not self, okay, the unconscious, the programmed, the conditioned, you, because of your design as a generator, will be frustrated. When you find yourself frustrated, you can be sure you have listened to the not self and gotten yourself somewhere that you chose from the not self. Frustration. Now, let me be clear. There are 5 types of people. Not all 5 types have frustration as their not self theme. There's bitterness, anger, frustration, and a couple others. But just know, for you specifically, frustration is the key. Oh, I'm frustrated. So you could say, where in the recent past did I not listen to my sacral authority? My gut, yes, no, or I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That sacral authority thing is very important for any decision you're making. All you got to do is hear that gut, or Everything else is irrelevant. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically, and I think this will be very helpful to any listeners. If you want to open your charts, listeners, and understand more about the open centers I'm about to talk about. We did some of this with Desmond's chart, but this is a different chart, so there's great intel here. I'm going to tell you now, Nico, the not self themes that are specific to each of these open centers and how to counteract them. Each open center you have in your design has specific not self themes beyond just general frustration. So allow me to explain. The open head, and this is so interesting because I also have completely open head and completely open ego like you. Rami has open head and open ego as well. Anyway, the open head, the not self theme of the open head says, I can't figure this out. I got to figure it out. That is the total conditioning lie of the mind, not self, not helpful, never useful to listen to ever one time at all. I can't figure this problem out. How am I going to figure it out? I got to figure out how to figure it out. Useless, inconsistent information will come. In fact, what you'll pick up on is what other people think. However, because you have open head, you will always feel a pressure to think. Why? Because the head is a pressure center. So the not self theme of the open head is, I can't figure this out. I got to figure this out. What is the freedom of the open head? You are free to not think. So you might say, well, then how do I choose? The answer is, in your case, you would respond to life and follow your sacral authority. So you'd be like at a coffee shop and your gut says, I have energy for that. Or I'm going to go order now. Or no, I don't have energy for that. I'm going to sit here at this table. What they say in human design is like spend the first 7 years of your exploring human design just trying to follow strategy and authority. If all you do is respond to life and follow your inner authority, which is that sacral gut knowing, that will be how you decondition away from all the trauma of the past. because that will be the Nico-ness of Nico making choices for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple more things, the not self themes of each of these remaining open centers. Are you still with me?
Yes, so much so.
Okay, open ajna, the not self theme is believing in the lie of certainty. I'm anxious until I'm certain. And I believe I can only ever not be anxious once I'm certain.
Mm.
The freedom of the open ajna is you're free to be uncertain.
Mm.
So you might say, but if I'm uncertain, how do I choose? And the answer would be follow your strategy and authority. What do you have sacral energy for? Okay.
Uh-huh.
Notice all of this is going to decondition you for you away from the head.
Yeah.
There is nothing consistent, reliable, or Nico-y about what goes on in your head in terms of making decisions about yourself and your life. Now, in terms of creativity, it's great to have an open head in ajna because everything is possible with an open head. Very creative. Everything's possible. No limits. You don't have a set way you have to think about things. You don't need to put things in boxes and label them stuff. You have a nice open head, so everything's possible. However, and that's great if you're like making a film, but if you're trying to decide who to use as your distributor of the film, you would not want to listen to your head.
Right.
You would want to listen to that sacral knowing. Okay, open throat. I believe I'm invisible if I'm silent. Or another way they say it is, if I'm not talking, I don't exist. But the freedom of the open throat is you're free to be silent. Like if you actually have nothing to say and the only reason you're talking is to try to exist, that would be the not self driving you.
Right.
Whereas the truth would be, I don't have to say words, I exist and people see me. I'm visible whether I say words or not. Like actually, since we all know Rami's a great example. Rami also has open throat. And if you think about Rami, whether they're talking or not, they are very visible, aren't they?
Yeah.
You can't miss Rami in a room.
Mm-hmm.
Rami's Ramiing all over the place, whether Rami says words about it or not. There's a presence there. That's you have that as well with this open throat.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like you are not invisible when you are silent. We see you and feel you big.
Wow. It makes me think about all the work that I did in my earlier life, that a lot of what happened to me was because of this visibility I have. But then I work to protect myself to be a little more, to be less visible. And that's what I've actually been trying to let myself undo, you know?
I do.
So anyway, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt the response.
No, please, anytime. No, I relate to that. I mean, a whole lot of my childhood was just get smaller so they don't be mean.
Yeah. It also makes me think of how often, sometimes when I teach, because I'm not often in academia, I'm like a guest artist, and I've been told so many times to check my face. Like I can't not sometimes, and I'm like, I think I'm just like holding something in, and I just don't realize how much what I'm feeling about what the other academics are saying is just coming across, and I don't realize I'm not hiding it. And that's something that, but when I embrace it, I actually kind of am delighted by it, like the way I just laughed. If I can like let myself just, there's nothing harmful in it. I think that's the thing I used to think there was harm to the visibility. I think especially because I had a narcissist looming over me. And
same here.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that a lot. And, the idea of like, what's my relationship to visibility? But being completely driven by a different, not being that, but having lived under it,
1,000,000%. Yep, totally. Yeah. Okay. Just two more. So we'll do the open ego next. The open ego is a big, important one. You also have a completely open ego, completely open head. And by completely, I mean, you'll notice that around these two centers, you have no gates hanging off. So if you look at your open ajna, you have this red line and this red line. Those are called gates hanging off. That means there's a little lesson to learn here and a little lesson to learn here. And these are hidden potentials you have and so on and so forth. Off of your head and off of your ego, no gates. No gates. That means this is completely not relevant to you in this life, your head, and this is completely done. You're done with ego in this life. Ego and thoughts. Bye.
Is that also the heart center? Is that what they're calling the heart center?
They do call it the heart center.
Cool. Me too. I have no gates off of an open head and no gates off of an open ego.
There you go.
Wow.
Look at that.
Wow.
What is that? Since I'm bringing myself up, what is the relationship between? You've talked a little bit about this, between like or unlike centers. with two people? Like if you both have open egos, do those centers interact with each other in a certain way? Or if one person's filled and one's empty?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, so if we both have open ego, we're probably going to have developed over our lifetime similar relationship to giving up versus fighting.
Uh-huh.
Let me tell Nico the not self theme of this, and then I can actually speak to your question, Cassidy, in as part of educating Nico about because I first need Nico to understand a certain thing for the answer to this question to make sense.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So the not self theme of an open ego is anytime I feel hurt, envy, or lack, I'm going to get busy proving I have worth and value.
Uh-huh.
Right? I envy those people because they belong in this group I want to belong to. I'm going to prove I'm valuable enough and get in that group. And I proved it. That would be the not self of an open ego. They say that an open ego person has nothing to prove. But anything you're trying to prove with open ego is your not self trying to prove it. It's not true for you. Okay. So what's the freedom of the open ego is the freedom to give up. Give up what? The fight, the need to prove. Now, to come back to Cassidy's question, how does a defined ego person relate to an open ego person? Well, something you'll notice is defined ego people they have something to prove, and that's correct for them. And they are sticky people. They're competitive. They're sticky. They're into hierarchies. They're into winning. They're going to stick to a thing until it's done. Open ego people, we say to them, don't make too many promises until you've really listened to your authority on an issue. Because you're going to change your mind 600 times with that open ego.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Also, open ego people think they're supposed to be defined ego people. Defined ego people function like, I said I would do it. It's my word on the line. I'm doing it. Open ego people are, I said I would do it, but I don't want to now, so I'm not gonna. Notice how different of a reality that is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And our world, the world we live in, says one of those is right and one of them is wrong. Defined ego people are right and open ego people are wrong because you're supposed to stick to your word. Your word is law, according to defined ego people. But that's not correct for open ego people because there's no consistency in the ego for us. It changes all the time. So you're free to give up. Give up the need for what? To prove you have worth and value. So another way to frame that is if you're saying, I said I would go to this party, so I'm going to go. The next question to ask yourself would be, am I going to prove I'm a person of my word so that I have worth and value to these people? Or am I going because, in your case, Nico, I have actual sacral energy to go?
Mm-hmm.
If you have energy to go and you want to go, go. But if you're going to prove something to someone, that would be the not self taking you there, which will lead to, guess what? Frustration.
Okay.
The whole reason to not follow the not self is because when you do, you get frustration. When we follow the true self by following our strategy and authority, as a generator, what you're going to get is satisfaction.
Yeah.
So when you think of most of the spiritual conditioning that we're all given and what we've all been taught, we think if I'm frustrated, there's something I'm doing wrong. I should change me in the situation. Maybe. Or maybe you shouldn't even be in this situation. Maybe you're in the situation from your not self. So the answer is get the fuck out of that situation.
This is so I'm at such a point right now where I think this is also what I've been looking at in terms of this next year and decade of my life of hearing kind of straightforward, like you said, even simple solutions like this is sort of because I'm very ready to be like, oh, that's going to work great. I'm ready to move with that, at this point in my life and not because this is very clarifying. And I feel like my gut itself has been trying to tell me what you're telling me about these things that don't serve. And this is really helpful to have look at it and hear you say it because it's, it's such a place that I've been trying to embrace my whole life to really, I think it has to do a lot with the questions I'll have of what has always led me forward when I felt the most alone. And I think it has to do with this gut thing that I just never knew to. And I've always wanted to just build more skill and, just love around and space around. That isn't what I was conditioned to, that the thinking, the other thing you said, ego were both the things. Also being a high functioning brain and the demand to succeed in school, but not motivated by the same reason too, because my hunger was to learn, not to make it look like I had a good report card. I didn't care about that part. Those are all things I've just been looking at and really trying to correct for this era as I also look to be more visible and bring more of my work and my voice out to the world and to feel safe to in what I'm guiding myself with. It's so helpful to know, like even if it's unfamiliar, it's helpful to be like that gut is, because that is what's always led me to my best successful moments, I know. And those big failures were the ones that showed me the other version.
Totally.
Those things you mentioned, like, and it's just very clear examples.
Let me show you another thing that's going to help a ton. This thing here is called your G center. The G center is all about identity and what we love or hate. You have definition in the G center, which means you have a fixed, consistent, reliable way of identifying as a something and not identifying as a something else. You have clarity about what you hate and what you love. And what you hate and love are very important for you with definition in the G center. In other words, if there's something called the magnetic monopole behind the G center for all people. The magnetic monopole is sort of like the thing that pulls us like a magnet toward what is correct for us. When you have definition in the G center, your magnetic monopole is going to be pretty loud about what you love and are passionate about. It matters for someone with definition in the G center to do what they love. So in your case, when you're looking at, do I do this thing or not? You want to say to yourself, do I love it? Does it feel like me? And do I have sacral energy for it?
That's so clear.
Do I love it? Does it feel like me? And do I have sacral energy for it? Not, does it make sense? How do I justify it? Is it good or bad, right or wrong? Is it logical? Not going to be logical. It's just going to be what you love and identify as and have energy for.
Wow. That's so freeing, and that's also it's like so speaks back to, I think, for so many of us, but the conditioning and the generations I had that raised me that didn't give themselves that option,
Totally. Of course.
I think about that, and like, that's so not how I was told to function in order to have success and happiness in life, and those were.
I do.
It's also, but at the same time, my whole life I've known that's what the center has been, but I've had to keep pushing back on that information. Yeah. So
1,000,000%. I know. It's game changing. It blows your shit up. All right. Last open center we have to talk about just briefly. It's this guy over here because it's an important one. This is called the solar plexus. You have open solar plexus. This is the emotional center. So people with open solar plexus, first thing to know about having open solar plexus is you are going to amplify. And when I say you, I mean your aura. Nothing you can do about it because this is what your aura does. Your aura is going to amplify the emotions of the people with defined solar plexus around you. So in other words, when people in a room are having big emotions, your presence makes those feelings bigger.
Oh my God. Yeah. Uh-huh.
For them and for you.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times if you're feeling pretty chill and pretty neutral and then all of a sudden you feel you have a sudden burst of emotionality, ask yourself this question: who in this room is feeling that feeling?
Right.
So if like all of a sudden you're pissed, in this moment you'd want to say, is Katie pissed? Is Cassidy pissed? Because it's probably not you, it's one of us. But you have open solar plexus, so you're amplifying somebody else's emotions in the room you're in. That's what your aura does. It's not your mind, it's not your heart, it's not your will, it's not your choice. It's just happening.
Yeah.
Now, as for the not self theme, this one's really key. Open solar plexus people will feel empty or overwhelmed regularly, and they will be conflict averse. The freedom of the open solar plexus is you're free to be emotionally neutral and tell the truth. In other words, a lot of times what people say to open solar plexus people is like, but how do you feel about it? And open solar plexus people are like, well, what we have to do is this. And they're like, no, but how do you feel about it? Well, I mean, there's no money and we don't have time, so we're doing this. Now, where it gets confusing for open solar plexus people is if you're thrown left and right and all about by your emotions, that's because you're open in there and none of it is yours. You're perceiving the emotionality of those around you and amplifying it through your open solar plexus.
Well, thank goodness I live in New York City.
Dense population, nonstop.
It's so real. I've had so many incidents in my life, and even just thinking about so much in my childhood, but like even in my adulthood, where I often joke, I'm like, listen, people just sometimes have to be around me, and I don't even know why suddenly they're at 10.
Yep.
And I've not done anything but like just be like, and I've had the like jobs I've had, especially like customer service, especially jobs where you're dealing with some of the worst of humanity, and just the way like sometimes my pure presence, like I've had that. Yeah. So yeah, that has to do a lot with what I've been thinking about, is like, well, how to wield that power better, you know, and how to protect myself in, you know, especially also being in the creative industry around people, how to utilize it more and not have it like, you know, this is so helpful, and that like that's been such a balance, I think.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So you just want to ask yourself, am I really feeling this way, or is somebody in this room heated up about something and I'm just aware of it in my big amplifying solar plexus? So the freedom, so just to remind you, you're free to not think, be uncertain, be silent, give up, and be emotionally neutral and tell the truth. If you want satisfaction. If you'd like some more frustration, here's what you should do. Think, need to be certain, prove that you're visible, prove that you have worth and value, and believe every feeling you have as your own. Then you'll be all kinds of frustrated.
Yes. It's so clear. Yeah.
Now, I'm looking at the time and I'm aware of the time, and I just want to ask you something. Given everything I've said, when you look at the questions you brought in, do you still have questions?
I mean, this answers, I think the gut thing really gets down, it kind of eliminates most of the questions I had. I really only had a sort of like, any question I have, and it could be for another time too, has more to do with my connection to guides and my ancestors now. And I could do that another time too, if that feels, because
we have time.
I could do something, and I can start and I think it can also just be like one aspect of it, because I think really the gut thing answers a lot of the question.
I thought so. What is the question you have about ancestors, etc.?
I think there's a part of me that I've always wanted to have now, especially at this point in my life, more access to, I think, having been very much feeling like I've been alone, like you said, the part of me that can't help but be myself, but I've also often felt very alone and unguided in that, right? But something also felt like things were guiding me. But I wasn't always, so I've always thought the image I wrote down before I wrote you guys was like, I always feel like I'm someone that's been broadcasting out on the radio, and I've heard messages, but I've never been certain I know things have been helping me and guiding me along with my own gut. And having not had a lot of I've been around a lot of adults, but not ones I could trust, but I was always reaching out to something. I've always been curious to have more certainty around, you know, in whatever I face, that I can ask along with, if I'm experiencing something with my gut, what can I ask for guidance on that feeling? You know, like, you know, what might be there? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. Although you did just say you're looking for certainty.
Oh.
So here's the thing. There is no certainty for you ever.
Right.
But what there is your strategy and authority and what you love and identify as. Well, none of us get actual certainty, but we do get to follow the pull of the magnet. What are you pulled towards? What do you love? What do you identify as? What do you have energy for? And does it create satisfaction, or does it create frustration? Very simple. Now, one other thing I should show you, because you just brought it up, is if you look at this real quick when you're ready. And I'll happily look at your guides and who's pulling you and all that, but I feel like this is almost more empowering.
Mm-hmm.
So you see these are the channels in here of the human design chart. You see this where it says individual, tribal, collective, abstract, collective, logic.
Uh-huh.
This tells us what kind of circuitry you have when you have channels in your system. A channel is any line that goes all the way from one center to another center. You have this channel and you have this channel. They're both pink. They're both individual circuits. This channel, this channel. Now you have one other channel, and it's this guy, and that one is a collective logic circuit. So what we would say about a design like yours, having two huge, powerful channels that are in the individual circuitry, is this is a very individual design. This is a design that's here to make an impact, to shake up the status quo, to send ripples into the force field. This is not a design that's here to be buddies and have a house and with the fence and the family and the collective and go to the sports games and do the kids in the car to the place with this is not a design that says to me, like, you're going to be home with your family, following the tribe, football, sports. This is individuality embodied, this design, because it's fully creative. Open head, open ajna. It's got a lot that it loves and a lot that it has energy for and a lot of intuition and a lot of power to create. But none of it is tribal and only a tiny bit is collective. So you're concerned with the collective, but you're here to be an individual. It's right there in the design.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you can't love people and can't have a family and won't like sports. It just means you're not as likely to be a tribalist as somebody with. So sometimes it's like you have to help decondition people with a lot of individual circuitry into understanding you're here to shake shit up, not to figure out where you fit in.
Yeah. I think that's a lot of what any like wasteful, like that, again, that thinking energy, that stuff that doesn't work, that all like it felt like such a frustrating waste of time in parts of my life because it was supposed, and it wasn't, I knew it was never really the way, but it preoccupied and it took away my energy, which is the thing I've really been, I'm really ready to be at a feel like I'm at a crossroads with. So to really like clarify what to move away from feels like this is, it's just so helpful. And I think embracing that individual journey in a way that it's the path to success for myself, because it's where happiness is, too, that's the thing to remind myself that whatever ultimately was conditioned on me, if their intention was for happiness and freedom, that, I have to just listen to this instinct that brings it this way for me.
That's correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I need to read this one more thing too. We have 9 minutes and then I have to hop off, but I want to give you this piece here. So if you look at this, we're going to look at one of your channels. Okay, so something to understand for everybody listening and for yourself about channels. Okay, remember, a channel is a line of energy, this guy here, that connects a defined center to another defined center. So if it goes all the way across, it's a channel. So this 58 down here, that's just a gate because it doesn't go all the way across. So the channel 2838, I have it as well. I need to read it to you. Oh, and why? Because channels have just as much fixedness, rigidity, and consistency as defined centers have. So there's no changing the energy of this channel, this 2838. It's not going anywhere. And people are reading it off you no matter what you do. You can't heal it away. You can't make it go away. You can't fix it. You can't dim it. It's just vibing off you. So the sooner we get okay with where we have definition in the design, the sooner we have less suffering. All right. So this channel, the 2838, is called the channel of struggle. I think one of the most, I'm going to read this. This is now me reading Ra's words about this. One of the most fascinating channels for me, Ra, because I am an integration person, is the 2838. This is an incredible force. First of all, think about integration. When somebody has integration, they're really caught up in their own trip. These are the most deeply selfish beings that exist. They're totally into their own trip. It's not their fault, by the way, but what to do? They're focused on their unique in the now survival. You meet a 2034, which is not you. When they're doing something, it's very, very hard to get their attention. I'm into my thing and I'm into my thing now, and I'm lost in that. And the fact is that when you look at this within the nature of human sexuality, for example, the nature of caring, you see that this is totally absorbed in oneself. Totally, totally absorbed. I care for myself. I care for my own existence. But the moment you bring the 2838, this totally self-absorbed, selfish individuality, and specifically the 2057, he's just talking about a couple things at the same time. But the moment you bring the 2838, this totally self-absorbed, selfish individuality, suddenly is ready to pay attention to the other, is suddenly ready to care for the other. And why? What magic does this bring? I've watched it all my life. I have this channel in Lovers Children. I've seen it in every possible way. The 28th gate particularly, I'm a 205710, and the 28th gate in my life is one of those things that is there wherever I look. I have nothing in this channel, so I've had a very interesting process in looking at it and watching it over the years. You look at this 2838, this force, this is the channel of struggle. People often forget that human design is a deep, deep, deep dualistic system, that every single channel can be understood by its opposite. This does not have to be the channel of struggle, but it struggles for something. This is what gives life its meaning. The meaning of life is not derived from the pattern or the experience. This is what we do over and over and over and over and over again because it's the plane we're on. This is something deeper than that, the 2838. This is what gives life its meaning. There is an inherent, not so much search here, but a demand, in a sense, that existence is more than just being born and dying, that there's something else. And this is what the 2838 brings. It brings this incredible struggle to find purpose. Having this myself, I'm so intimately familiar with that, the energy of that in my life. It's like I need to struggle towards something that makes this life be much more than meal prep, take the dog out, get enough sleep, hydrate. That shit makes me want to die. I also have a ton of individual circuitry myself. So for people with individual circuitry, we may have to do those things to sustain human life, but it is not what brings the purpose and the fulfillment and the satisfaction. When you have integration channels, this is an integration channel, you're all about integration, which means how do I become whole? Me, Nico, whole, integrated within myself, satisfied, fulfilled, which requires a lot of selfish self-focus. But remember that this is the kind of selfishness that is the greatest gift to humanity. Because think about what an integrated, healthy person can do for people. Look how useful I am in my stupid fucking life. Just by, I need integration so badly that I pursued the most belly button staring levels of healing a person could bother with. And now I get to be a wizard for other people to have their empowerment and their integration. But that's after 35 years of belly gazing, which the world, if you listen to it, would tell you not to do. Oh, you should be out. Oh, it's so self-involved. Oh, what if you have the fucking channel of struggle? You are pulled towards integration. You need to struggle for life to have purpose. It has to feel meaningful to you. Otherwise, it's all empty and purposeless. And what's the fucking point?
Wow. Yeah, that speaks so much also to like such a core thing that, you know, the idea that that's what was that impulse to follow that was what was kept from me because it's not, but it would have led me to so much more. And then when I found something like theater in my teen years, it's that's the first time I felt that married, like, oh, I'm creating something that actually creates a success within me that I'm good at, I want to apply myself towards, and it's based on me having focus purely on myself and my joy. And other things that anything else I did in my childhood that was about that, it was always about eventually having to let go of those things as opposed to embrace them. And that's been just such a like thing I've been trying to reclaim so much. So this is very encouraging.
Yeah, totally. When I looked at the design of my mother, I saw she had all these tribal channels. So she couldn't understand what it was to have this individual kid who was like, me, and my talent, and me, and I, and me. And she was like, yeah, but we and the family, and us, and we, and the family, and the family, and the family. And I was like, what fucking family? I'm busy. Family is not the priority. And we just were different beings made to do different things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it is. And what if nobody's fucking wrong?
Yeah.
Everybody's just what they are.
Yeah.
And certain relationships work and certain relationships don't. And everybody's just trying to find circuitry that matches. The last thing I'll leave you with is in human design, we talk about the mechanics of a relationship. So what we all want to understand is that when you look at your chart, Nico, and you see these lines, all these colors and lines, when my aura comes into relationship with your aura, our lines and gates and circuits and channels and centers start to interact like puzzle pieces that either fit or don't. And nobody's wrong. You vibe with who you vibe with, and you don't with who you don't. And that's how it's built.
Right.
Which is very liberating, I find.
I do too. I think this has been about the era of embracing, moving towards just more what I vibe with and not putting those thoughts, those feelings into what I don't vibe with. Because that, like, I think that's been really like, you know, that's really helpful. Yeah, no, that's real.
But as a 1-3, we've spent a lot of time focusing on what we don't vibe with because that's where we learned.
Yeah.
I know what I don't like. I know what doesn't work. I know that doesn't work, but it's harder to identify what does work.
Yeah. I sometimes need to slow down the process of like becoming the teacher already when I'm still learning the thing. I already want to learn how to tell it to my students, but I have to like go, well, that's that part of me that relates to what you're saying, Cassidy. Like that's already, you know, but it's like, no, just live in it, experience it a little longer, and then you can impart it. Yeah.
I'm really very happy we got you on and I got to look at this and share this with you. I hope it's been useful to other folks listening, learning about these open centers. And I'm just so glad we got to spend some time with you, Nico.
Yeah, this was so amazing. It's such a gift for my 40th on Valentine's Day. So this was such a nice, I've been wanting to like chat with you, and then I got the invitation. I was like, oh.
I love it so much. For me, it's special. It probably seems weird that I'm very touched, but I am, because I get to hear about you just tiny bits from Rami. And so to make you a real human is really satisfying for me, because I'm like, look, it's the Nico-ness of Nico that I hear about. All the glory of Nico I've heard about. So it's a treat to get to interact with you directly. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, and I'm just feeling the Bay Area vibes, even though I know that's not where we all are right now.
Totally, same.
Nico has sat in this backyard here at Chateau L'Orange. We had a lovely cocktail or something, or a coffee. I don't remember what, but really lovely hangout in the backyard one time.
It was so nice. I found that place I was wandering in Oakland, and I found it before I even realized that it was your home. I don't know if I mentioned that to you, but I had been staying nearby, and I took a walk and I took a picture of the place, and then Rami the next day told me the address, and it was your place.
I don't think you told me that.
That's wild.
You had already vibed that place. You were like, this is a place.
But that's the thing. It's like that intuition of mine that you're telling about. I want to like enjoy that more, because that's where so much I'm like, oh, I just found it. Like I have like a part of me, but like then I like get all bogged down in doubting that. But look, the universe took me right to you.
And that sounds to me like that third line body, where you're going to bump into stuff that's correct for you. That's literally what happens for third lines. You just bump into stuff. It's useful.
Yeah.
Part of the path.
It's awesome.
Well, thanks for being here, Nico.
Thank you so much.
Have a great night.
It's such a pleasure.
Much love to you.
We'll talk to you again.
Bye.
Bye.
What do you say? Did you notice that we were done? Is that what happened?
I know you got to jump off, Katie. So bye, Nico. And Katie, any final words before you jump off?
That was so fun and so satisfying. I just love that person. And
yeah,
that was a delight.
And I think I asked about the like alignment of things because I have like an energy crush on Nico. You know what I mean? I've only met them in person once and talked to them on the phone once. But I have that sort of energetic crush where you're like, I just want to kind of vibe in your vibe a little bit. So
I don't think I know what you mean. Energetic crush, like.
Well, it's not like romantic or sexual, but it feels akin to that.
Okay.
That crush energy where there's certain people where I'm just like, hi.
Yeah, I get that.
And it's an energy crush. That's why I call it an energy crush. Right? I just want to kind of.
That makes sense.
The auras line up or whatever it is. And I was wondering if that had anything to do with like design's interface. Like.
Not in the way you're asking, but if we were to put your charts together, we could see where the dominance channels are and the compromise channels and the electromagnetics. My guess would be you have a bunch of electromagnetics together. That, or you just want to be like Nico.
There's that. Yeah.
So if we looked at, that'd be a cool experiment to look at your charts together and see what that is. But it wouldn't be necessarily through the centers. It would be through the circuitry. But yes, there could be all kinds of shit doing that for you. I'd love to see your charts together.
Yeah, that's fun.
Let's do that sometime. We can do a connection chart reading on here. I've done that for a bunch of clients. So it's super fun.
That's a cool expansion on the conversation.
We could also look at yours and Denise's, yours and Rami's, mine and Denise's, mine and Rami's.
Mine and yours.
Yeah, yours and mine, whatever.
I think we might have done that a little bit, but I feel like that would be a really fun one to look at, actually.
For sure. Okay, my love.
Oh, I love you.
I love you too.
Have an amazing week. Have fun doing improv and all the things. Love you. Do your work.
Love you. Do your work.
I'm gonna.
But also have some fun.
Okay, bye.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com